Yes.
Yep.
What
For
have
being
I not done
here.
right here?
We are going to get started here in a minute, just letting all you beautiful people in. Love it.
That's
87, love it. 88. All right. Thank you all for being here. Got more coming in. 93. Oh, let's try and get past 100. Try and get past 100. Here we go. 9,900. Yes. All right. 104, 107. Wow. The reluctant. We have found the reluctant. Yes. We're so happy you're here. Oh my goodness. And they keep coming. And they keep coming.
My gosh.
Where are we? 112. Let's go. Let's go.
Amazing. Anita, when you got started, would you consider yourself a reluctant when you got started?
Absolutely. And you know, this is somebody I'm speaking as, I love talking on the phone, but I am definitely a reluctant phone banker. It's a very natural dichotomy within a personality that you can love the phone as a medium, but the idea of calling people is intimidating.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No question about it. So I think that all of us, when we were putting together this, this training for you all, it was something that felt personal, right? It didn't feel abstract to any of us. And so we're thrilled that you're here. And oh my goodness, 127, Maria, this is fantastic. I want to give
out of this 127, can I just see with hands, and no worries if we can't see you, if your camera's off, like no worry about it. But for those of you who we can see with hands, who feels like they are here today because they like desperately need to like switch gears, need to learn from others, and like really just they're really reluctant and are wanting to get started phone banking?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Good. That is why we're having this.
But I hope you'll
Good.
also talk about for those of us who had technical problems. I mean,
Okay,
I've tried 3 times and I've been so frustrated.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Tina.
Yeah, and I've signed up for the week of action this next weekend. And I want to make it positive.
Okay. So show of hands, who is at technology? They're here because of the technology stuff. All right. We got Janice. We got Julia. Okay.
Yeah.
Anne.
Oh.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to say the first time I tried to do phone banking a week and a half ago, an hour of swearing, I made 0 calls. 0 calls. I settled down. Yeah. I came back the next week and it was fabulous. So take heart, get back in the battle. You too can do it because I'm a troglodyte.
Thank you. Well, we're definitely going to talk about some technology stuff today. And what do you think, Anita? You want to wait 1 more minute just to let folks?
Sure, we got a couple more folks joining here, but yeah, I think, you know what I can do, Maria, is why don't I'm going to pin you and then I'm going to start sharing the slide deck. I can continue to let people in. How does that sound?
That sounds great. And I appreciate everyone as well for, you know, when you're coming in, muting so that we can have the best sound quality and get the opportunity to hear from everyone. And it also looks like as well that folks are utilizing the chat.
Yep.
Yes. This is indeed Peg and Jim, the advanced workshop on phone banking for the reluctant. All right. And yes, thank you, Daniel, for the reminder that we are recording this as well. And so if you find that this is super helpful for you and you've got lots of neighbors and friends and family members who you're excited to bring into this work as well, you'll be able to share this link and if they're reluctant as well, and hopefully get them on board. And yes,
Okay.
let's dump Trump. Let's do it. Thank you.
I'm going to share my slide deck, and if folks want to view Maria, you can go down to side-by-side view, and when Maria's talking, she should come up again next to the PowerPoint for you to see. Is that working for folks? Can folks see the slide deck?
I don't.
You don't? Okay, let's see. Who was that just said that?
That's me.
I see it.
Okay, let's see. If you're not seeing it, are you on a phone or are you on a?
I'm on an iPad.
Okay. Do you see my photo? Let's see.
I wonder if the person has the gallery view open.
Yeah, you might want to.
I see you, but I don't see Maria.
Yeah, I'm gonna pin Maria here in a second. Let me pin her. I think that should show her to you all. Can you see her now?
Can you guys see me? I think I'm spotlighted.
You should be spotlit too.
And if
I got pinned. Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Oh, I was just going to say, we can make sure to read these slides aloud as well, in case there's other folks on who aren't.
Yes. That sounds great.
Yes.
Okay. Oops, I'm sorry, Maria. I shouldn't have gone straight ahead like that. Go ahead.
Well, let me go ahead and get started. I think it's about time, don't you guys think?
Love it.
We're running out of time, right? We're ready to do this.
Go.
Yes, okay. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Maria Abando. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm on staff with CP as well as one of our really awesome mojo makers. And today we are here to do an advanced workshop on phone banking for the reluctant. You know, as mojo makers, along with Anita Werner-Crofts, who's here sharing her screen, Daniel Caseberg, Kylie Knowles, and I'll also throw in Maggie Rittenhouse, who isn't a formal mojo maker, but has been helping out with the state teams as well as one of our state leads for Team Minnesota. All of us, as mojo makers, we get the opportunity to go to the state teams, to be with you in community as you are all volunteering and doing this amazing work. And we have been hearing time and time again that phone banking is hard and that lots of people are struggling to overcome the hurdles that they need to overcome in order to get into this. And we know that David and Charles, our great CP leaders, and the rest of the team have been urging us and pushing us, reminding us that phone banking is the #1 most important thing that we could do right now getting involved in this election. And so as Maggie and the Mojo Makers heard all of this, we knew that it was time for us to put together an advanced workshop to help overcome some of those hurdles, including like if you just have some misconceptions about phone banking, if you've got some of those anxieties about what is going to happen when I call, or what's going to happen, who's going to answer the phone on the other side. Or as someone, so graciously pointed out as we were getting started, if technology is your thing, we are going to try and get over that together today in community. So thank you all so much for being here. All right. So we have a good agenda packed for you today. We're just going to go over some intros, some goals and values, and then we're going to get into the way that our evening is split up into a couple of parts. Number one, we're just going to identify out those obstacles and try to put forth some strategies to help out with those obstacles, right? And like I mentioned, it's, just general efficacy, misconception stuff about it, fears about getting started, and then that learning curve with the technology. And then we are going to be building on that competence, building on that confidence by hearing from a couple really awesome volunteers who have also been on this journey as well with phone banking. And then hopefully get a chance to do some FAQ. We highly encourage folks to use that chat and put in questions along the way if you've got some, but there will be a designated time to be able to do that, as well as a little bit of role play, and then committing, thinking back, reflecting and pledging on the action and, you know, seeing together what is next. Where do we go from here? So that's what we got for you. And then I mentioned some of these folks as we were getting started here, but do you guys want to jump in and say hello? We've got Anita Verna Crofts, who is our main lead and who is leading. Daniel Caseberg, who is our fieldwork manager, is also one of the Texas team leads and Washington team leads. Kylie Knowles, who's also one of the North Carolina team leads and staff on the CP team as well, doing some admin coordination for us. Maggie Rittenhouse, who is, oh, we've got an official title for you, team lead coordinator. And then me.
And I'm sorry, Maria, I was trying to unmute myself and I ended up
no
moving
problem.
the slides forward and backwards, but you did a great job.
We have a
Maria.
really awesome team. Thank you guys. Thanks for being here. And you're going to hear from each of these folks along the way, for sure. Okay. And then just to outline these goals, one, again, we just want to identify what these obstacles are to confident and competent volunteer phone banking. We want to identify strategies for overcoming them so that you can feel competent, but also just reminding folks that, you know, we're doing this to feel competent and confident, but you know, as Charles says, we always want to be 100% okay with 70% certainty. So it is about just getting us there, knowing that things are going to be fluid. And then also providing resources, testimonials, and experiential learning in order to feel good and feel confident doing this. That's the goal.
I just want to pipe in that we're at 171. That's so great. Thank you all for coming.
That's going to be a lot of calls later, y'all. Yes, Nancy LaRusso said perfectly imperfect. Exactly. Okay. So as we, as Mojo makers, have had the ability to be going through, listening to the calls, you know, Daniel runs his Friday remote check-ins, all of that. We have obviously come up with some frequently asked questions, a lot of things that people are asking us about phone banking and just in general. And some of these things are here, and Daniel has nicely broken these out, or Maggie, one of you guys, awesome, have broken these out kind of into the categories that we're talking about here. And here's some of them, you know, how does phone banking compare to other types of voter contact? You know, why do I reach so few people? And is it a waste of my time? I know I've had so many people call and say, you know, I called for 2 hours and I only got into contact with like 2 or 3 people during that time. Is this the best use of my time right now? You know, do we have to know everything about the candidate and the issues? Sometimes people feel, you know, afraid if they don't feel like they've done enough research on the candidate. You know, they might feel that they'll be bad at it, or if you get into logistics stuff, things like, will I be trained ahead of time in order to feel prepared? How do the trainings work? You know, who are we going to be calling when we get on the phone? What if I do call like that super belligerent Trump supporter or something like that? Will I be using my own phone number? When can I make calls? You know, all kinds of questions that we are going to be addressing as we go into these different parts today. Okay, so we're going to just ground ourselves in our values really quick, because that's what we do as Mojo makers, and then we're going to come back and cover those frequently asked questions and jump into it. So remember, we got to do this. We got to remember. Sometimes one of the best things for me to do when I am struggling, whether it's because I've had some difficult calls or I just don't have the energy today, and one of the best things that I can do to keep myself going is to remind myself why it is I'm doing what I'm doing, you know, and get grounded in that. And so that's what we'd like to do today with our Mindset Mojo and Mobilize. And I believe, Daniel, are you leading us through this part here?
I am indeed, Maria. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. Well, thanks for that, Maria. Thanks for setting the scene for us. I just want to say a big, tremendous thank you to everybody that's on this phone call. I feel like already you should all be proud of yourselves because this is the first step into getting where we need to be. And even taking the initiative to be on the call and wanting to be active participants in this learning is really significant for all of us. So thank you, first and foremost. We wanted to start with our 3 M's, which is really like the grounding, like the foundation of our organization, just to see how all of this actually is applicable in practice. And so some of this might be completely new. You might have seen, you've never seen these M's before, these circles, and some of you may be seeing this for the 100th time. Just bear with me. So Anita, whenever you are, perfect. Awesome. So for folks that have seen this before, you know that our 3 M's are our mindset, our mojo, and our mobilize. And these are the non-negotiables of our organization. And they're what we're so grateful to know that you've all bought into. Everybody that is a part of this organization and counts themselves a volunteer understands that these are the 3 things that we're trying to show up with every day and every action that we're taking as volunteers. And you really, really buy into that. We believe that democracy should be just and inclusive, and we have a responsibility to make it so by action. That's why we're all here. We know that we do this work together in community and in teams, not only just in workshops like this, but when we're actually doing phone banking and doing text banking, we're working alongside one another. We're prioritizing and amplifying next generation leaders like Maria, Kylie, myself, and others who are at the center of this work and will be what make it sustainable over time. And last but not least, we know that we're registering and catalyzing voters in key states. You've all bought into that. You know the stakes of the election all across the country and why it's so important to be involved. And we follow the lead of our partner organizations. And that's perhaps one of the most important ones. And so this is what it looks like on paper, but let's look at that through a lens of actually phone banking and what does this really actually mean? Because I know that we're all bought into this. We all trust that CP has these 3 M's for a reason, but let's look at actually what it means when we're making these phone calls and how we stick to these values. So, translating our mindset into phone banking, we believe that phone banking is worth doing. That's the one thing that we all need to be bought into, is that phone banking is absolutely 100% worth doing and it's worth our time. And that it's the most optimal vehicle that we have to take action to rectify our more just and inclusive democracy. Okay? Mojo, we know that phone banking can be successful when we're all able to lean on community and work in teams. We know just how important this teamwork and this community centered focus is for providing us a sense of sustainability and positivity and hope. And we know that we're going to be able to do this if we do it alongside other people. That's really, really key. And then last but not least, we know that we can do it if we trust our partner organizations. There are going to be so many questions that come up with phone banking. Maria alluded to a lot of them earlier with the frequently asked questions. These questions are going to keep coming up. You're going to keep asking them. You're going to keep identifying new questions as you continue to phone bank. And we just have to remember that the thing that we lean on in those moments of question is that we know that our partner organizations know what they're doing. They're very competent and effective people at these organizations, at these campaigns, and working for Democratic parties all across the country. And we just know that we have to trust them and that they know just a little bit more than we do, right? And so I just want to remind everybody as we're going forward throughout this, we're going to address all of these. We're going to give you the skills, but that really what it all comes down to is we have to buy into these 3 M's. You've all bought into this and you all know that buying into it with a phone banking lens is just the next step for us to be really successful volunteers going forward for the next 6 weeks. Thanks, Anita. Awesome. So first part here.
You are welcome.
Yeah, we're just sorry about that. We're gonna kick it to Maggie first to talk about why phone banking really is effective to get to that first part of that mindset. We understand that phone banking is worth doing, and Maggie's got some really important info to share for us. We're gonna cycle through a couple of different aspects of phone banking, the obstacles, and then provide strategies for overcoming those things. So I will kick it to the one and only Maggie.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. So, Anita, can you go to the next slide? Actually, when you get a chance. So I actually, my background in the last 8 months, I actually ran a campaign in Minnesota, so had some access to some really, really awesome data that was gathered kind of on a meta-analysis of all of the different types of engagement that are out there. And I can tell you resoundingly that phone banking is effective, and I'm going to give you some of that. Some of it I can't share on paper right now because there's some proprietary information, but I'm going to talk through it. So if you go to the next slide, Anita. So first we're going to look at GOTV. That means get out the vote. So what's the impact of a single phone banking program versus other ways of contacting voters? So this means like if there's one organization or one campaign doing one program, like a phone bank that has a certain sort of message, what does that one program drive in terms of turnout? This is in order. So the number one thing a program can do is relational organizing, and that means friend to friend reaching out. So that would mean if I text my husband or if I send one of my friends, that can result in a 2.8% turnout. That is incredibly high in any sort of in any program. A pledge card is the next highest, and that was shown at about 1.5% increase in turnout. And a pledge card is where someone has actually signed up and said, I am going to vote, and you mail that pledge card back to them. Door to door is about a 0.9% increase in turnout. We obviously can't do that this year. That's why it's marked out. A warm SMS, that means a text that you actually have a relationship with somebody, that can drive a 0.6% change in turnout. Phone is at 0.4% turnout, and a cold SMS, which is mean like you don't have any relationship, you're just reaching out, that was 0.3%. Now that's on average. Programs have like different impacts. So that's one single program could have an impact in a region or a state of phones are about 0.4. Given our world of what we have control in, phones are our best option on this list of what our campaigns can do. You will see some of the things that relational organizing that's happening, where if you're calling and one of the questions might be, will you commit to ask 3 people that you know to vote? That is playing on a lot of research that's saying that relational organizing is really important. So that's a little bit about what a single program can do. And Maria wanted to call it. So get out the vote really is the phase that we're in right now in most states, which means we've done a lot of work to identify their voters, try to ID them and to know if they're supporters of ours or not. And those who are supporters, we want to get them to the polls. So the get out the vote is all about moving them to action. So that's one program. So let's go to the next slide, Anita. Now, the thing is, when you think about one program, that's not really the right way to think about it. You have to think about layering of programs. So as more GOTV efforts are underway, the marginal impact of one might be small, but the combined effects, and this is what the research shows, can be substantial when several programs are running at the same time. As the quote, many hands make light work, and that's a lot of what CP is about, is that we're here to be amplifiers and to help people do all of those programs so that we can actually drive a higher return on that work. Can you go to the next slide, Anita? So but if we're still talking about a single program, those margins really matter. So anything that can move turnout by even less than a percentage point, that's what we're talking about this year. So if you look at Michigan, I pulled Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Florida from 2016, how many votes Hillary lost by in each of those states. Then the next column says, what percentage of the vote of registered voters is that? Look at those numbers, 0.1, 0.7, 0.5, 0.8. And then if you look at how many voters is that in each county in that state, 129 voters in Michigan in one county. So these are absolutely numbers that we can, if we go after them, that we can flip them. And that's why phone banking, even if it seems like a small number, they are material because obviously campaigns are won on the margin. So that's why every contact matters. And I can take questions on this too. Then I also want to talk a little bit about working at scale. So sorry, back one, Anita. So the thing is, I know as an individual caller, when you only get 2 people to answer, maybe you even get 0 people to answer, it can feel very futile. The thing is that at scale, phone banking is one of the most cost-effective and the best ways to reach voters, especially in a year of the pandemic. So if you need to reach 100, 1,500 people in a given county, you have to make a lot of calls. The average answer rate is about 10%, 10 to 15% when your first round of calls. And then that answer rate goes down every pass you make of them. So if you need to reach all those people, you need a massive amount of volunteers to be making those calls. So on an individual level, it can feel like you're not making a difference, but you absolutely are, because you're added to every single other person who's making those calls with you, so that you can actually get to the voters that we need to talk to. So that's on GOTV, which is Get Out the Vote. The next thing is on Persuasion. So just something to think about as what teams you're joining is, I know there's obviously a lot of energy we need to get Biden elected. I obviously totally agree, but persuasion programs have actually a much stronger impact. And by persuasion, I mean, you're calling and you're having a deeper conversation with someone, maybe an undecided voter. You're trying to talk about your values with that person. Not as much of that is going to be happening for the rest of this cycle, but you can see that local and municipal, you can have up to, sorry, let me grab those numbers really quickly. You can have up to a 3.4% impact on vote margin in the local and municipal level, and it goes down pretty steadily to the presidential, is just because the media environment is so full of information. Like a one-on-one persuasion, it's pretty hard to change somebody's mind at the presidential level. But on a ballot initiative, a statewide initiative, you're more in the 2 to 3%. So for those of you who are working on some campaigns that are beyond Biden, those are super important too, and you can have a really big impact of having those kind of deep canvassing conversations, which I think some people are doing. Okay, next one. Oh, other way. Okay, so thinking back about phone calls, like what's the key benefit? So for a campaign, the first thing I want to talk about, because I know a lot of people are doing postcards, which is awesome, but the thing about phone banking is it's a two-way conversation where we get a lot of information back, which is critical for campaigns and organizations. One, it helps you ID your supporters. Who do you actually need to get out the vote later in your cycle? If you don't ID those supporters, you won't have a plan to do that. It also helps you understand who are your undecideds. Who do we need to keep on targeting? And are there other ways like digital ads? Do we need the candidates to call them? What do we need to do to try to move them into our court? We need to ID the people who are opposed to us, so we can actually save time and money and we don't reach out to them again. And then I know a lot of people have done work that doesn't feel very gratifying, but it's just cleaning the list, saying like, oh, this is the wrong phone number for this person. But again, that work is incredibly important for a campaign and organization to be able to figure out who they want to contact. And then I think, and Maria made a really great call, this phone banking is also a way to reach communities that are less reachable by text or door knocking. So for example, like if someone lives in an apartment building, it's really hard to door knock them. They might not have a cell phone. And so these are communities that really need to be part of our democracy, but phone banking is the most effective way to reach them. So you'll see that. Obviously people get targeted in different ways, but phone banks are really effective for certain communities. So I'm gonna wrap up the efficacy part. Oh,
Mac,
yeah.
can I feel responsible to like even expand on this a little bit more, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
I just want to just emphasize and underscore this one, like our ability to reach communities that are less reachable by other mediums, because it's so freaking important. Like if you like live in just kind of more of like a bubble of privilege, it might be wild to you that there are people, especially 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds that like do not have their own cell phone, or do not have like a cell phone that they're not worried about their parents' charges or something on that thing. So if you try to like text certain communities, sometimes they're not going to be reachable. If you've got folks who have language barriers, literacy barriers, or folks who even just have differences in learning abilities for their ability to read big things of text, and or just like seeing a giant postcard with giant red lettering that says like a campaign person on it or something, like you might not be as likely to read that and to process that as you would like somebody picking up the phone and talking to you about it. Like phone banking and as well as door knocking, but you can't always do that. Like this is why it's so critical and is that important piece that's in our mindset when we're remembering that our democracy isn't as just and inclusive as it should be. It is because we are not, as a democracy, reaching everybody. We just are not. And we have to do what we can, including phone banking, to reach everybody that deserves to be a part of this democracy. I feel very passionately about it, and that's why I wanted to jump in, but that's all. Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Oh yeah, no, that's critically important, and that's why we're doing the work. So I appreciate it. And so I think if we can go to in summary, to the next page, is so what I would like you to all take away is phone calling is the most effective method, is one of the most effective methods we have at our disposal in this election. I won't feel it, might not feel it on an individual level, but at scale, it is the most important thing that we can do. Contacting 1 to 5 people a session, it really matters. Elections are won on the margin, and this method is about those margins. And then I think going back to what Daniel said that we think about with our partner organizations and our approach from CP is our partners are smart. They know the research, they know who they need to talk to, and they need us to reach those voters. And our goal at CP is to do what our partners ask us to do. So that's a little bit, we still need to give you a lot more tools about like how you do it and how you get comfortable. But I just want to allay the concern that it is not worth it, because it absolutely is worth it. And it is why there is mobilization across the board to do these phone calls. It does matter, and it will make a difference in this election. I will also check the chat. I haven't looked at the chat if there's anything else I need to address. Okay. So I'll pass it over to Daniel for talking about emotionally challenging parts of phone banking.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. And thank you, Maria, for that. That is one element of it. I think that that's kind of the core understanding that we all need to have at a base level. It's just that actually it genuinely works. Okay. It works. It's effective. And not only does it just like work, but it's actually probably the most effective thing that we have at our disposal in this year to be able to do it. So thank you both. The next thing that comes on with that, once we've gotten that first, like, okay, this is actually a good thing. Like, this is worth my time. Okay. Now how do I prepare for this? Let's talk about like the emotional aspect of this, because it's not the easiest thing in the world. And there's a couple of reasons. So to answer the question, is phone banking emotionally challenging? Absolutely. And thank you, Anita, very much. I think it's just our responsibility as an organization to just be honest with you and just let's be real. Let's be straight up and say that it can definitely be emotionally challenging for a lot of different reasons. But I think that the anxiety of not being able to see a person and then also not having like a framework and understanding for like how to read people's facial cues and things like that, that's a big part of it. So phone banking does trigger a sense of social anxiety for many people, definitely myself included. And it's acute to phone banking as opposed to like in-person organizing, because you can't see somebody's face. And there's a lot of questions and concerns that might go off. Like, what are they thinking? Did I just interrupt them in the middle of their dinner? What has this person got going on in their life? Have I uprooted what they were doing with their evening? Whatever it might be, those things are amplified by a sense of phone banking, and it's also amplified by that sense of anonymity. It's also a little bit easier for somebody to be more rude to you over the phone than it would be if you were face to face with them, like if you were at their door doing door knocking, which is what we would typically expect, right? And so we also want to make sure that we acknowledge that generally it can be a little bit harder and a little bit of a different social interpersonal interaction compared to phone banking. And we just want everybody on this call to know that Common Power really, really understands this. We get it. It is hard. I have been on, and I feel like there are a lot of folks on this call who have been on countless phone calls this year where it's like, this what do I do? This is really challenging. I need to feel like I'm reaching this person, right? And there are a couple of things. I think that we're going to go on to the next slide to just kind of break those things down in 3 different ways. But I think it's just important to start with the fact that we get it and that you're not alone in all of this. So let's talk about some strategies, particularly because we do understand that this is the most, and I just want to ask just really quick if everybody could go ahead and make sure that they're muted, please.
Yeah, sorry, I'm working on that.
Thank you, Anita. I know you're doing a lot between
Daniel,
switching.
I apologize.
No, you're great.
Thank you for reminding folks when you join to please mute.
Thanks, Anita. I know you got a lot going on, toggling between.
No, go on. You're good.
So let's do so let's talk about some strategies for that, just to cover that nuance. So just like anything in life, and especially anything in life that you're doing for the first time, you need to practice it, right? And we're not asking you to do like the 10,000 hours of mastery, right? Like we're not making that pitch. You don't need to be an expert and have all of this down, right? But just a little bit of practice. So a couple of things that we've found that are really useful for us is developing like a phone persona, the actual physical act of smiling and treating a conversation in your physical body language like you would an in-person interaction definitely helps. And it is scientifically, people can hear it in your voice when you're smiling and you're treating it like an in-person. Rehearsing the script, reading it out loud more than a few times and coming back to it. I started doing phone banking last week for the Biden campaign in battleground states. And I did it with my buddy who has never done phone banking before. And I was able to jump right into it because I had done a bunch of door knocking, right? And his first time doing this, he said, Daniel, I need a couple of minutes. I'm going to go upstairs with my roommate. He says, I'm going to go upstairs and practice the script a couple of times, make sure that I really understand all the elements of the script, and then I'll come back down and join you for calls. And that's great. We want you to go through it all the way, practice it in different voices and things like that, just to make sure that you're really comfortable with it. And then the last thing is having a text chain, a Zoom group, and a partner to debrief rough calls and great ones, and then get back on the phones. And so that element of practice and debriefing things and talking about what went well and didn't go well, that in and of itself is a form of practice, that processing. So that's another thing. The next thing would be a sense of mindfulness. So and this is one thing that's just tough for just any experience in general in life, is recognizing emotions and being observant of them and then not reacting to them. And instead just continuing to go ahead with your strategy. I just want to acknowledge that is just a hard thing for any human to do, whether that's your interpersonal relationships, whether that's something that's going on at work, or just how you experience your day, maybe something you're having a bad day for whatever reason. It's challenging to recognize when things are coming up and just let them go. But when you feel something creeping up, you feel like you are going through a tough interaction with somebody on the phone, it's just, okay, I know that this is happening. I've prepared for this. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I have a response that I'm able to fall back on. So that's one key thing. It's also important for us to recognize what is the absolute worst thing that could happen making these phone calls. Is somebody could yell at you. Somebody that they could say, like somebody said to me from Wisconsin last week, they could tell me to go to hell. Right. And that's okay. Right. That happens. And that is the absolute worst thing, because I think it's important for us to recognize that we're in the comfort and the safety of our own homes. Right. And that the absolute worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to end your phone calling session after about an hour. You're going to be tired, and that'll be it. And you'll be resilient and physically able to return to it the next day. But I think on the other side of that, let's flip it to the positive. What is the absolute best thing that could happen? The absolute best thing that could happen is you could reach a voter who's never been called by a campaign before and who has been waiting, wanting some information on, how am I going to vote absentee, right? I have never done this before. I'm really concerned to go to the polls. It's not safe for me. I'm immunocompromised, whatever it might be. And you're there to walk them through the process of requesting their absentee ballot. This could also be a person who has never registered to vote, and you're the one that's going to be guiding them and having them take their first step to activate their democratic process. Those things, those highs, those really positives, those have to outweigh all of the negatives. I take the experience of having a great phone call 1 to 50 times being yelled at. It is worth it for me. And I think that it's just important for us to recognize that the best thing that can happen is you enable somebody to participate in the democratic process. And that's a pretty damn cool thing. The final thing that we can give as a piece of advice would just be to make yourself comfortable. And this looks really different for everybody. So how your body feels is how your mind's going to feel. So setting yourself in a comfortable position, a comfortable chair, maybe you're walking around, maybe you have a warm beverage, you've got your tea, or maybe you're like me and maybe you've got a beer and you're making yourself comfortable doing these calls. Whatever that could be, right? It's just really important for you to find your personal zone in whatever it is and just settle in and know that it's all going to be comfy, so that your body's right, your mind's right, and you're prepared with your best energy to go forward on these calls. These are just a couple of strategies, and it's going to look different for everybody else, but knowing that this is the first time for everything, so practicing, and it's okay to practice. 2, as hard as it is to be mindful, just in general in life, we need to just be cognizant of the way that we're feeling and knowing that it's really going to be okay. The worst thing that's going to happen is we're going to end our call session. And then last but not least, go easy on yourselves and understand that when you're feeling your best, you're also going to perform your best. Awesome. I'm going to pass it back to Anita now.
Daniel, hold on a second. Can we just really quickly, you've gotten some questions here in the chat
for sure
about this, so maybe we can address these together really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Linda, I just scrolled. Linda's saying, bringing up a good point here about, and the chat just moved as we came back.
Maria,
Yeah.
I have all the 4 questions in a document. Do you want me to just read them out? So we can...
yes, please.
Okay. Linda is, I can understand phone banking to get people to vote, but to sponsor a particular candidate in another state where I do not live seems a bit dishonest. How do you handle that?
Yes, that's a really good point. Like just that could be one of the anxieties, Daniel, recognizing that, I'm not in that state. So is it going to be weird having to have conversations about like whatever I think is going to be best for other people in that state when I'm not even there? Yeah, I can totally understand how that can feel a little weird and give you some anxieties. But also remember that there are tons of people who do not live in that state who are having large impacts on that state because they have the ability to give and donate and maybe even pay for some really expensive ads or billboards or something like that. So remember that it's not just going to be you. Regardless of what's happening, everyone from around the nation is going to be trying to participate in these elections, right? And then also recognizing that part of this is just being yourself fully and honestly, and bringing your personal side of your story to it as well, right? Like when you are making calls, nowhere in the script do you have to say, I personally am, in this state and I'm going to be voting for this person. But you can say, hey, I'm a concerned volunteer, and that's why I'm wanting to give some time to do this. I don't know everything about this candidate, but I do know that these 1 or 2 really important points are that this candidate is in support of are going to be really meaningful and really impactful, and that is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It is sometimes recommended that if you don't know a whole lot about the candidate or you don't know a whole lot about the state, sometimes it's just like finding 1 or 2 points that really resonate with you and make you feel really good about what you're doing, because you are obviously doing this for a reason as well. And whether that is on whatever their points are, education, the environment, sometimes that can be very helpful as well. All right.
And I would say I haven't heard many people be asked where they're actually from when they call.
Yeah, good point.
But we have, I think when we were calling in Minnesota, Seattle people were, and someone asked, where are you from? It happened once. And she told them, and they were like, wow, you care. It was more actually a positive than a, like, you're spending your time doing this. So just know, you're not lying. You're calling because you care about this race and you want people's voices to be heard.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay, and I think we have had a couple other questions here.
Yeah, the one from Cheryl was she was filmmaking and people just kept on hanging up on her. Is there anything to avoid it?
Yes. And that could have been a technology thing, but if it was a situation where someone assumed that you were, trying to get money from them, sometimes starting off, and sometimes it isn't in the script, but I tend to say it anyways by saying like, "Hi, I'm a volunteer," and like throwing in that you're a volunteer can sometimes nip that in the bud because obviously you're not being paid to be doing what you're doing, right? It seems like you've got that, and that some people hung up when you said you were a volunteer with the NAACP, again, before you could explain why you were even calling. Sometimes that just means you lost that person, and that's totally okay. It is, because chances are, if the campaign has the ability, they may call them back and get them at a time when, you might have called them just at a bad time, whether it's like, in the middle of dinner, or maybe they're at work or something like that. So they could get another call. Or if they just do not want to be having these conversations or to be reached by phone, then, that is their prerogative. And there's nothing that we can do to be able to, spend our emotional energy or specifically our time phone banking, worrying about that person, because there are so many other people that we still have to reach as well. I think one of the frequently asked questions that was not on here that I actually might be my number one thing that I get from people is that, hey, I personally do not answer the phone if I see a phone number that is outside of my area code, or, I don't answer the phone anymore. I do everything by email and by text. So I kind of feel like it's personally going to like break a personal belief if I decide to be making calls when I know that I personally don't answer them. I hear you. I do understand that, but let's also remember as well that like let's just check what we're doing here. We're saying because I personally do not something, that means that other people aren't going to like it, or that other people don't do that thing. And if you're hearing me say that, that doesn't make sense, right? Like, that that's not wrong, or that's not right. We shouldn't apply our personal beliefs and our personal feelings to like what other people are doing as well, right? So they might not be a person that likes to talk about this stuff over phone. That's okay. You're just gonna move on to the next one and don't waste any of your time or your emotional energy on it. Yeah, Daniel, would you add anything to that?
No, that's a really good question. And I know that was a lot that we covered there. I think always when we're thinking about this, we're just gonna lean back as hard as we can, back on the 3 M's, right? And understand that we're stewards of the partner organizations, that we're volunteers from the Seattle area, and that we're there to assist, but we're never there to impress our own agenda. And also, we can trust the partner organizations to prepare us well to speak about the candidate and to speak about issues. But by no means are we being asked to be policy experts or stewards of this candidate's entire life story, right? We're going to be prepared well, and we're going to be competent and confident, and we're going to be able to handle what we can handle and act within our control. We're going to go over a couple more of these questions. I know that there's a lot, but we want to make sure that probably we respect everybody's time and we hop into the next thing.
That sounds great. Thank you, Daniel and Maria and Maggie. I'm gonna open up my video here and pin myself, which I think I can do. Where am I? Come back, Anita. I'm gonna pin me. Hello, everybody. So now we're gonna shift into is phone banking technically hard? And I'm thrilled because I'm gonna go over a slide and then I'm gonna pull back into gallery view because we're gonna have a short conversation with 2 volunteers. Many of you will know them. They've worked with me at Team Maine, and we're gonna talk about not only their experience phone banking, but specifically thinking about how one approaches this from technical perspectives, because we know that that's often something that many people are thinking about when it comes to phone banking. So again, sticking with the honest approach that the Mojos and Maggie are taking tonight, absolutely true. There's an element of phone banking. It's different than 30 years ago where you were picking up a phone, punching in numbers and dialing. It's much more sophisticated, but it's nothing more than all of us. Like, let's just even imagine this platform we're on tonight, Zoom. Before COVID-19, the number of us that were really familiar with joining, engaging, operating in Zoom calls was relatively low. And I've even watched my own familiarity with it just blossom over the last number of months. We don't have months right now, we've got days, but keep this as an example where we all can develop technical capacity rather rapidly when asked to. And so don't let the different technical platforms that exist for phone banking be intimidating. Very often it's a matter of just getting the training that you need. And speaking specifically for my experience with Team Maine, the Maine Dems are very aware that training is a crucial step to getting someone into the phone banking pipeline and have them comfortable. So you're not going to start phone banking until you've gotten training from the Maine Dems. And our states beyond Maine are similar in that way. So we recommend, first of all, doing that training when offered. In the case of something like the Maine Dems, they offer the training every single day, multiple times a day, and then really starting to get to know that system. Now, I will preface this by saying we know that a lot of Common Power volunteers really enjoy calling from multiple states, and we want to encourage that. Of course we do, but just recognize that you may then be encountering slightly different systems in order to make calls for those different states. It's totally fine, but just recognize that there's going to be a general familiarity that you get with what it's like to be engaging with a screen and then making calls, how it's going to work with your telephone, how it's going to work potentially making calls with your computer. But just be gentle with yourself, make sure you spend time on the trainings, and recognize that the systems will work, as we say here on this slide. These are systems that are designed to be able to make you feel comfortable moving through numerous numbers, tracking that data, which is so crucial, as Maggie went over, even if it's nobody picked up, even if it's that it's a disconnected number. That's part of the data cleaning that's so valuable, along with those mountaintop moments that Daniel described, where you actually reach someone that didn't think they were eligible, that hasn't been called, that really propels you forward because you feel that sense of momentum. So know that these are conquerable platforms, and practice makes perfect. And what better time to practice than in these 41 something days before the election. So in a training like this, we're not going to be able to trot out all the various platforms that exist in this country and in the 20 states where we're working to make calls. That would be impossible. But what we can do is try to frame some of the technological conversation when it comes to what was it like for someone like Tira and Jane. I'm going to come off of my slide deck now, to get involved in phone banking, and what was it like for them in terms of learning the technology. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to find Tira and Jane, and we're going to just spend maybe between 5 and 10 minutes having a conversation with Tira and Jane about their experience phone banking, but also specifically what it was like for them to come to phone banking through Common Power, and how they've personally approached various technological hurdles. Because we've seen in the chat already tonight questions around, do I use my own phone number? Do I use a phone number that's given to me? These are things that both Jane and Tira have experienced before. So let me unpin myself, and I'm going to go back into gallery view. And hey, Jane and Tira, can you say hi so I can find you? And you can pull up there. I see Tira. Hi, Tira. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
I think Jane's on here. Hi, Jane. Thanks for being here too. So I think, Maria, you were kind enough to mention at the beginning, I'm Team Maine. We just finished our action days. You're going to be hearing about subsequent action days coming up in the next couple weeks, which are really actually next couple days. I think North Carolina starts imminently, and then we'll just continue to cascade forward from September to October. But I'm lucky enough to get to work with Common Power volunteers like Jane and like Tira for Team Maine. And so I wanted to ask you both, and I'm going to start with you, Tira. First question is just simply, what was your idea of phone banking before you started doing it for Common Power, just generally, and how do you feel about it now? Tira, let's start with you, and then we'll move to tech.
Okay,
And I'll ping
great.
you.
Well, I honestly have been, off and on, I've been doing phone banks for years. And I actually I've been doing it for so long that I don't remember what my original feeling about them was. But you know what? It hasn't changed. You know what? I am like, I think it's so great that I'm talking on a phone bank called Phone Banking for the Reluctant, because I've been doing it for years and I am still reluctant. It is really, it's not an easy thing to do, but but I am doing it because I really believe those numbers that we talked about, and I have amazing conversations with people. So yeah, so that's basically yeah. And the other question, which was my friend Carolyn pointed out to me this morning that almost all of us signed up with Common Power to travel and knock doors. And that is not easy either, to like go up to a stranger and knock on their door. So calling them on the phone is just slightly differently weird to talk to strangers in that format. And so, it's just, so think about that you were already planning on going and doing this other, interaction with a stranger. So it's just a different kind of interaction.
Thanks, Tara. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to ask Jane. And when I come back to you, I want you to share your Google Voice experience, because we're going to shift to tech.
Oh, yeah.
And Jane, how about you when it comes to phone banking? And if you want to, you can, because we're going to start going into a conversation around tech as well. So take the question that I asked Tara, what was your thinking about phone banking, and tell us a little bit about how you're feeling now, a number of weeks in. And then if you want to segue and add to your answer, the one that I'll come back to Tara with, can you talk a little bit about what it's like for you from a tech perspective to navigate the phone banking for the main Dems?
Okay, obviously Tara, who's been doing this for years, is way more qualified to talk about different platforms and everything. And I really only have a couple of, the main platforms, the Immigrant Welcome Center and the main Dems. And so here's a trick I use to make it easier. I get a Google Voice phone number that has a 207, and I put on my handy little headphones. And for some reason, psychologically, it's easier for me to put on the headphones and use my computer than to pick up my phone and call people. It's psychological, and it's like, okay, this is business I'm doing. And so anybody I talk to, this is a business call. Not that I'm business-like, but it just helps me get into the mindset of, oh, now I can call another one. I can do one more. I can do one more. It's much easier to keep going with it. That seems silly, but it works for me. And
no, I don't think it's silly at all. Continue, please. Go ahead.
So anyway, that's how I listened to the podcast with Daniel, Maria, Kira, and that's why I said, okay, I can do this. And I would encourage everyone to listen to that, because it's pretty encouraging, and it's like, well, we need to do anything we can, and what can we do from our homes, and this is what we can do. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Actually, if I can ask one of my mojos or Maggie to put that podcast link in the chat, that would be great. I've heard so many good things about that podcast. Maria, Daniel, Tira are all stars on that. So thank you, Jane, for bringing that forward. Tira, before I come back to you, I just going to follow up with Jane. Jane, one of the things that I remember we've had that conversation about, even just having that headset for you is it's a different way that you enter into making those calls. So this goes back to what Daniel said. You have to situate yourself in a way that feels good for making the calls. For some of you, it might be actually physically holding a phone. I like holding a phone when I do it. I also use Google Voice the way that Jane does, but I actually like having the phone. I like being able to dial on my phone, and then I have my earbuds in. So it's a good example where you might all be using Google, or there could be 3 people using Google Voice, but engaging with the technology in a bit of a different way, if that makes sense. And in the case of, I know in Maine and I know in other states that Common Power works in, you will be provided trainings, and there will be ways you can follow up. And I also wanted to make it clear to folks too that the training doesn't just exist in a finite amount of time. I know that our contact for Maine Dems is available to troubleshoot with people outside of that training itself, but is available over email, is very willing to engage. It's not just in this short, narrow bracket of time, but know that there can be subsequent questions that you can be helped with as well. Tira, how about you in the technology? Jane, thank you so much.
So Anita, were you like talking about my complete fumbling with Google Voice?
It was not fumbling. I was talking about your triumph.
Fumbling.
It was, but you stuck with it.
Right.
And this is, I thought, the lesson.
Right. So that's the thing I want to say. Like I actually am working in several states and they all use different technologies. And so you have to be prepared to just fumble around in them until you figure them out. And you can. You just need to, and you know, here's how I work, and maybe you're like this. I can go on a training and someone can theoretically tell me how to do something, but then when I go there, it says like, hit the blue button. And it's like, what blue button? There's no blue button, you know? And so you have to like, I just have to try, I just have to do it. So I'm like, I learn by doing. And I think that's the difference between people who read the directions and then do the thing, or do the thing and then when they can't figure it out, read the directions. So
sure.
I had to just like, so we got on in Maine, we got on a phone bank one night and we had to, it was just a technological kind of tangle. And I just tried and tried to do this thing and I couldn't figure it out. And then the next day I went back to it and my brain in the meantime had actually like given me the answer to like where the blue button was. And I found it. And so, I mean, that's all metaphorical, but you just have to work with the technology. And the other thing is that I think that there's probably the lion's share of us who are not technological natives. We came to this as older people who just find it so much more challenging. And so you have to be like so much more persistent because we're just stuck with this technology and we don't have an option to go knock on a door, which requires no technology. We just have to just sort of steel ourselves and try it and then come back the next day and try it again. And you can figure it out. But just keep at it.
Thank you so much, Tira. It's so true. I mean, I think that the abiding idea that I want folks to take away from this particular section as we move into breakout groups and start actually doing some role plays that Maria and Daniel will take us into is that the technology is conquerable. It's something you all possess the ability to do. If you are on this Zoom call tonight, you can make calls on any platform that any state uses. I guarantee it. In some ways, Zoom has even more complexities. So I assure you that it's possible. And I also want to say, I noticed during Maine Action Days that sometimes people were deeply apologetic for their questions. Don't apologize for having questions about tech. We all have questions about tech. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your background. Technology is a tool that requires a lot of trial and error. And so this is why the trainers are there. That's why they're available. It's why I stay on the call during the action days that we're making phone calls. We are there to be able to answer questions. So don't hesitate. Don't give up. Know that it's worth it, and that once you become familiar with one of the platforms, all of the platforms are going to feel more familiar. There's a lot of similarities across them. So Tira and Jane, thank you so much for coming on tonight, for being part of this, for the work that you're doing, but also to offering these very specific anecdotal approaches to the way that you do the phone banking. Tira, you want to say one more thing?
I just want to say one more thing really quickly, because I saw in the comments that the difference between phone banking and door knocking is that you had a partner in door knocking. I have a partner. I have many partners in phone banking. And so find somebody who you can give each other both support, challenge each other, whatever, but like get with a friend. People shouldn't phone bank alone.
Yeah, and that's a great point that a lot of the team leads are going to be putting together. I've already put together calling parties where we join join together and we make phone calls in community. And so be looking for that. For any of you that are, I hope you're all affiliated with Teams or Action Days. If you're not, please go sign up on our fieldwork page. But know that those parties are going to continue when you can come together. You're making calls individually, but you're doing it together in community. There's not going to be a Google Voice training during this per se, but I know we've got some documentation, and I'll follow up with Maria and Daniel after we do our role plays around steering people towards how to set up Google Voice, because it's very doable. The information is online, but we also have some documentation, I know, at Common Power. But I think at this point, I'm going to come back. I think we're going to move on to role plays. Is that right, Daniel and Maria?
I guess so. Role playing for the reluctant, right? Okay.
Let me see if I think I
put
can.
it together. I'm with it.
It's gonna be okay if it's you and me, Maria. We got each other. Yeah.
Do you need me to be on how should we do this, Daniel and Maria? Should we do it on, should I go back to the slide deck, or should we just go into?
If you could go back to the slide deck.
Of course.
Probably.
Happy to.
Yeah, I'll walk through. So we'll do it. Maria, how would you like to be the caller, or would you like to be the voter?
Whatever is easiest for you, Daniel. I can be the caller. I can be the voter.
Okay, I'll start as I'll be the caller. I'll be the volunteer.
All right.
And then we're gonna make sure we're gonna walk you through everybody through these three scenarios that I'll show you with the next slide. And then we're gonna put it on you. We're gonna just jump right into it in the most basic and fundamental type of phone banking interactions that you can have. So I will start with me being the caller, the volunteer.
Yes.
And let's replace Jane Doe with Maria, perhaps.
Yeah.
And, Maria, let's work through. If you want to imagine yourself as, we'll do three of these first. We'll do it as you're supporting Biden. We'll do it as you're an undecided voter. And hopefully doing it as Biden is something that we're all comfortable with. Fantastic. And then last but not least, imagine yourself as a Trump voter, and throw me anything, Maria. Just go off script, and I'll try to maintain as best I can. So this is generally the way that we're going to start off, and I'm just going to jump right into it, folks. Okay. Hi, my name is Daniel, and I'm a volunteer with the Joe Biden for President campaign. Is Maria available, please?
Oh, hello. Yes, this is she.
Hi, Maria. Thanks so much for picking up my call. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fine.
Good. Thank you so much. Hopefully you have a minute. I'm just calling. We're getting out the word for Joe Biden coming up, because there's the presidential election happening coming up here soon in about 6 weeks. I just wanted to outreach and just see if you were planning on voting, and if President Biden or Vice President Biden could count on your support in November.
Oh my gosh, say that. Yes, I am here for President Biden, for Vice President Kamala. I'm like voting early. I'm voting by mail. Like, I got you. Yes, this is what we're doing.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Do you have all the information you need to either get to the polls or to vote absentee?
I do. I filled out my form, my absentee ballot request form. I'm getting my absentee ballot. I'm so excited.
Well, thank you, Maria. I'm really glad to know that. I just really appreciate you showing up for voting. I know that it means a lot to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that you're turning out to vote. It's such a critical year for us to mobilize for these two and get out the vote. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Best case scenario, Daniel.
Best case scenario. We love those, and you're gonna come across a lot of those. So let's stay encouraged, and whether you're calling for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or somebody a little bit down ballot. That's what a positive interaction is going to look like. They're going to tell you that they're voting. You're going to ask them how they're voting and whether they have all the information they need to be able to cast their vote. And then really most importantly, we want to give positive associations with voting. So we just really want to thank people for their time. We want to thank people for going to the polls and just remind them how important it is. And that's all that it is. It's really simple. We're able to move on from that. One is, oh, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love that. And when we were, talking about even showing this response, it was kind of like silly at first because we were like, people aren't here for best case scenario, right? Like people aren't here to watch us do what we just did. But we wanted to do it because it is important to remember, as Daniel said, that validation is important. Like you do get like a giddy, like a good feeling when you know that there's a volunteer that's out there supporting the candidate that you want to vote for, and just makes you feel as a voter all the more happy to be voting, knowing that you've got like a community of other people behind you, as well as sometimes they do have that extra ask if someone is like extra giddy about it. Sometimes there is that ask to to volunteer. Thank you.
Absolutely. One that's just a little bit trickier, it's not as clear, and one that depending on who you are entering this conversation could be harder than a no or a trumper, is how to deal with an undecided voter. Framing this is, I am not a policy expert. Let's just take that I know absolutely nothing about Joe Biden and the platform and Kamala and the platform. I'm just going into this and going to rely on a couple of open-ended questions. So let's start it again from the top. Hi, my name is Daniel, and I'm a volunteer with the Joe Biden for President campaign. Is Maria available, please?
Oh, hey, yeah, this is Maria.
Awesome. Hi, Maria. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. We're just calling. We're trying to get out the vote for Vice President Biden and Senator Harris, and just reaching out to voters and wanted to see if Vice President Biden could count on your support in November.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You've got me kind of like at a weird time. I don't know. I just don't know what I'm gonna do. Things are weird.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I totally understand. It's a pretty challenging time for us all. Everybody's going through a lot, and it seems like the only certainty lately is that things are uncertain. Do you mind if I ask you what kind of things are important to you and what you're considering?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm personally just super frustrated because, the environment it's changing. There's climate change, and Daniel, I am just so worried about the environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I share that concern. I live out on the West Coast in Seattle, where we just got through about a week of really bad haze from wildfire smoke and things from California and Oregon. So I totally share the concern. Yeah, it's and it just seems like we're anywhere in the country we're experiencing some sort of impact from the climate crisis. So I appreciate that. Have you had, do you know anything about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's stance on the environmental legislation and what they'll do if in office to help combat climate change?
I don't know, but I'll try and do my research. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like both of them are probably going to do something to change it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the specifics of the plan are all on Biden and Harris's website. So I'd really recommend going through that. But absolutely, just at a basic level, they are going to take action and acknowledge that the climate crisis is real, which is far and above better than the Trump administration's denial that climate change even exists. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but I just want to know that I absolutely hear you, and that if you need any support with that, Joe Biden's website will have a bunch of details on the aggressive steps that he's going to take to curb climate change and emissions. Maria, do you have any other questions that I can answer at this time?
No, thanks. I'm going to take a look at the website, but thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Maria, for your time. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much. Hopefully Joe can count on your vote in November.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Hey.
Thank you,
job.
Daniel and Maria.
Nice
See,
job.
role playing for the reluctant.
I like that Maria threw me that curveball of I want Daniel to address a specific issue. And sometimes you're going to come up with that when you're asking these open-ended questions. And sometimes that's going to look like what issues are important to you. Other times that's just going to look like, do you want to just tell me how you're feeling about everything? And sometimes folks are really happy to have somebody on the other end of the phone that they can vent to and that they can express their frustrations with, whether that is directed at the candidate that you're calling for or potentially their opponent. Whatever it might be, it's really important, even just at a base level, of just listening and acknowledge what somebody is doing.
Yeah.
So we're doing things like we're doing active listening, and we're vocally letting them know that we're hearing them and that we're allowing them to say what they want, and understanding that. And then last but not least, I think I could have gone on right there and talked about every single thing that the Biden-Harris administration would do to curb climate change. But I probably don't have all of that information, and B, Maria probably doesn't want all of that information. What she needs there is somebody to understand that there is somebody on the other line who is acknowledging that the issue that is most important to her is also important to them, and that they have a lived experience with that, right? But that also that there is a plan. I assure you, there is a plan, and we're directing folks to the right ways to go, rather than pretending to be like the policy expert. And that's just the best thing that we can get out of that interaction. Maria, is there anything else there?
Oh, I think that's absolutely right. Like, I can't tell you guys how many calls that I've gotten where the skill that I had to exercise is exactly what you said, just active listening, just voters that are frustrated. They definitely have their issues on their mind better than I seemed to in that moment. And they're ready to talk about them. And I think it's great to just listen, make them feel heard. And regardless of at the end of the call you come out having made a plan to vote, at least they're going to associate Daniel with the Biden campaign and that he listened to what this voter had to say. So I think that was great.
Thanks, Maria. That's awesome. Let's run through the last one, and I think it's going to be.
Okay. All right.
Oh, do you want to?
I'm just getting. Well, I'm keeping an eye on the clock. I know you've got Arizona coming up in just a titch, and we've got a couple more things. What do you all think? I mean, can you do?
I mean, this is worst case scenario, right? This is like
okay.
Or what? Is that worst case scenario? Maybe. Okay.
Yeah. And Anita, don't worry about me. I'll roll off to get Arizona.
Okay. Go ahead. And then why don't you set it up that after you all finish this, we're going to go into breakout rooms. And Daniel, are you going to drop the script into the chat box? What's going to happen after this?
Yeah, I will drop the script into the chat box. I think you might have to make me a co-host for that.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
There are going to be 50 chat rooms. That's going to be 2 to 3 people per chat room. We're just going to do a couple minutes practicing with one another. I know it can sometimes feel awkward, but look at how well Maria and Daniel are doing this, and it's working. So remember, practice is part of it. So let's do worst case scenario. The way that it's going to work is when the chat group, in the chat, you're going to have the person who is making the call, the overture. And those of you that are not making the call in the chat room get to respond however you wish. You play the Maria of this dynamic. And then you can mix it up and take turns. And then we'll bring it back after a couple minutes. But go for it, folks.
Awesome. Yeah, and Maggie has that all typed up, and she's gonna paste it in for the chat function so that everybody can see what they're gonna be saying.
Perfect.
Modeling.
Thank you.
So last but not least, okay. Hi, my name is Daniel, and I'm a volunteer with the Joe Biden for President campaign. Is Maria available?
Excuse me? Are you kidding me? With who? What campaign?
Hey, I'm a volunteer. My name's Daniel. I'm calling with the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaign for president. Is this Maria?
Yeah, this is she, but I don't know if you know this, but Donald Trump is going to make America great again. So excuse me, I don't know what you're doing, like making these calls. Like it's people like you that is going to like ruin our democracy. Vote by mail? Daniel? Vote by mail?
I'm sorry, Maria. I'm just a volunteer. Well, I was just calling to see if you were interested in voting for Vice President Biden for president.
I am not interested.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for going to the polls. I appreciate it, and we'll take you off our list.
Okay, goodbye, Daniel.
Yeah. Yeah. So usually, I mean, we won't even get to that, right? Like if Maria was really the way that she was on this call, right? I mean, she'd hang up on me, or there'd be some sort of profanity, whatever it might be. Maria was
apparently I already did that tonight. So.
She was a gracious Trumper, right? And you know what? I think really the end of the day is, okay, wow, I got yelled at right there. That's all that it was. We're going to thank that person for voting, and we're going to move on, and we're going to understand that it's not the worst thing in the world, because we have too many undecided folks. We've got too many Biden and Harris folks. We've got too many people in some spectrum of the Democratic Party that need to be activated, and our energy, our time, and our money is way better spent getting those people to the polls than it is convincing anybody of abandoning a sense of lunacy, right? So that's what we're going to focus on, is just understanding, okay, I'm going to let that shrug off me. It's okay. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm going to keep making calls because I'm going to activate somebody else in this hour that I'm doing phone calls. Yes. And at that point, you're really going to want to rely on your comfy chair and your hot drink, whatever it might be. And just remember, I'm comfortable. I'm in my space, and it's all okay. So yeah. Maria, thank you. I had a lot of fun doing that, and you are a fantastic Trumper. Gosh, I just love doing phone calls with you.
Oh, thanks. I've never gotten that compliment before. Thanks. Love it. Daniel, are folks
Thank you, Maria and Daniel. So, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, are folks normally going to be calling people like that? Or, like, are we calling Republicans?
It depends.
Yeah.
Depends on...
Sure. We call lots of Republicans.
Yeah, it depends on the night that you call, depends on the list that your team partner org is using, things like that. Not always, but sometimes.
And just to reiterate, we're in the get out the vote phase in a lot of cases, where all of the hard work with cleaning our list and knowing who are Democrats is done. So a lot of it is you just trying to get them to have a vote plan. But there are some campaigns that are still working on Persuasion, and it tends to be, there definitely are undecided voters. I put in the chat, I had an 18-minute and a 13-minute conversation, which is unbelievable, and it's important, and those conversations are like, so that can happen, but I don't think many people are getting like Republicans unless you're in this, like in the deep red state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think instead of just being mindful of the time, I think we're actually going to, instead of doing practicing tonight, is that we're going to move toward the, what are we calling it? The pledge. Let's see, let me pull that up. How does that sound, folks?
Sounds great.
Yeah, let's see. So we definitely encourage people to practice. That is a big part of this. But at the same time, it's also good to just make a commitment to think about, let me go forward here. Where did we decide? Yeah, what do I do now? So you've all taken the time to come to the training tonight to be actually, can people see this? People able to see this? Yes, oh good. So you've all taken the time to come to the training tonight. And so one of the things that we thought would be helpful in leaving the training tonight is to encourage everyone to pick one race, to do the training, and then to make the calls, is to actually take the time to identify what's the race you want to call for, when are they offering trainings to be able to support that race or that partner organization that's supporting the race, and then actually making time in your schedule to make those calls. Do we want to break into small breakout groups to do this, Maggie and Maria and Daniel? What's the vision here?
I think that's a good idea. We can just do
Yeah,
3
just
minutes.
do a quick, like 3 minutes. Yeah, that sounds great. All right, I'm gonna put us in 2 breakout rooms. And then we will come back after 3 minutes. So 1 race, training, make the calls. Here we go. Everybody, welcome back. All right. Let's just get everyone back here. Maria and other folks will be joining.
Thanks for keeping such a good eye on the time, Anita.
No problem, no problem. This is going real well. So people have pledged to action timeline. I think, Maria, if you want to just finish us off here, and then we're going to move. Oh, look, actually, it looks like people are still coming back from the groups. Hold on a second.
Okay. I guess.
Let's see. Oh, we got a 99 back, Maria. I think that let's give it a shot. How does that sound?
Sounds
We're
good.
gonna, yeah, we're gonna finish with this in action days. Cool.
Okay. Well, hopefully we've gotten a chance to discuss a little bit, maybe meet somebody else and share some strategies, or just get affirmed and validated in what your next action steps are going to be. But just to close us off, because we started here and we're finishing here, keep these things with you. When you have those hard moments, come back to these values, come back to one of these 3 M's, because the reality is probably one of these things is going to help you get back on track and into the mindset that you want to be on. Remember that we believe that phone banking is worth doing. It is, even if it seems futile in the moment, it is worth doing, because we believe that democracy should be inclusive and we want everyone to participate. We know that our phone banking is successful when we're able to lean on community. That's our mojo. That's why we're here, why we're doing this. We know that we can't do this work alone, right? Phone banking only works if we're doing it with hundreds of people, and all of it only works if we're able to lean on each other and move forward together. And we know that we can do it because we trust our partner organizations. They are on the ground, they have the best strategy and knowledge. And if they know the right thing to do, it's them, because of course they're going to be living with the consequences of these elections. So this is it. And I believe, is it Maggie? You've got some stuff for us for Action Days?
Well, and can I ask just real quick before Maggie jumps in, can someone put the Arizona link in the chat box, please? There are a lot of folks that would like to call for Arizona, and Luke and Brandon are having a meeting right now. And so if folks can put the Arizona, if somebody could just grab Arizona's Zoom link from the events page, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Maggie, go ahead. Action Days. Where's Maggie gone? Maggie, you here?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was just talking with mute on, which is great. I apologize. I just wanted to reiterate, I know there's a few questions like, how do I get started? What do I do? The best thing to do is to join a team. So you can find that on our fieldwork page. I just put in the link to the Arizona team sign up, but all you have to do is go to the fieldwork page. There's a map. Click on the state you want to join, say join team, and then the team lead will reach out to you and ask you and tell you what's going on this week and get you involved. And your team leads are your best source to say, like, how hard is this? What platform? All that stuff. They can help you with all of that. One way to get involved is to join an action day. So we're doing 2 to 3, or sometimes in cases 4 days of action. We're trying to recreate what it was like to travel together. North Carolina is coming up in 2 days. So you can see that September 23rd to 26th. Wisconsin's next. Anyway, you can go through that list. If someone could put the Action Days link in the chat too, you can sign up for that. You don't have to be part of that team. It's a great way just to get involved. There'll be social events, there'll be training, and there'll be remote action. And it'd be a great way to kind of, warm up to this whole process and feel like you're part of something in community. So highly recommend that you join a team for their Action Days, or just join one team and start doing their weekly calls.
Thanks, Maggie. Yes, yeah. And then if I can just leave you guys off with anything. I know that we didn't get a chance to jump into some of the breakouts, or to dive in as deep with the technology as some people wanted, but I actually want to leave with a little bit of wisdom from Tira, since I did get an opportunity to do that podcast with Tira. She said something that's really stuck with me, that this phone banking, especially because it's new and it's your first time and maybe it's technology that could be hard, remember, give it more than one shot, in a way that you would with anything else. Riding a bike, driving a car, when you learn those things, you didn't get it on the first try. So if you tried it once and it was frustrating and it was tough, that's the reality of trying something new. try it again the second time. And then maybe that second time you'll work the kinks out. And then by the third time, you'll be able to get in your groove, right? It takes a few tries to get into your groove. And that's what I took away from Tira. That's what I'm applying to everything in life, as is with phone banking. And I hope you're able to do the same thing, because we need you. We do. We've got under, 43 days or something like that left until the election. We need you. We need your time. We need your energy. These voters need to hear from you. So just thank you. And we really appreciate your work and your energy with us. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maggie. Daniel, thank you. And he's, I know, jumped over to the Arizona call. The Arizona link is in the chat box. Kylie, thank you for joining. I know you're now on the call and for putting up the Action Days stuff. And what a turnout. Thank you all for coming. And Maria, that was a perfect way to close that idea of like, try again. It's every call matters. We saw the margins in 2016, and you know what? Jane was telling us about a sign she saw when she was driving through Seattle a couple of weeks ago, and the sign said November 4th, and then underneath it, it said, "Did you do enough?" And I have not forgotten that. Yeah. Ever since Jane shared that during our main Action Days, November 4th, did you do enough? And phone banking is a terrific way to make a difference. It really is. So thank you all for being on this call. Thank you for everything you do for Common Power.
Thank you. Thank you, Tira and Jane.
Yes, thank you, Tira and Jane. That was great. I'm going to pull us into gallery. It's so great to see everybody. I'm happy to stay on a couple minutes if there are questions that we can answer right out of the gate that haven't been answered already, but but feel free to peel off. I know that it's getting to be around dinner time for many in Seattle, but if we're just thrilled to have had you on. I hope that this gives you that the boost to move past the reluctance.
This is Martha from Seattle.
Oh, Martha, you just went mute again. Come back.
That people need to fill in the activities log after their calls.
Oh,
so
thank you, Martha.
That's a kind of an important thing.
Yep, that's a great thing to remind us of. Maria, you want to talk about the importance of the activity log?
Yes. We really, as Common Power, really want to be tracking your work and knowing the impact that you're having, and how it's been, how the teams are working with volunteers, so that we know which teams to direct people to if they need a little bit more support as well. So remember, whatever activity that you're doing, even I know some folks even log stuff that is not even with CP, but you guys are CP volunteers. So whatever it is that you're doing, you can always go to the fieldwork section, the fieldwork tab on the website, scroll down, there will be an option to report your activity. And we're asking you to log that information. Oh yes, Anita is amazing. She's got it, commonpower.org. Log that information for us.
I can't smell.
And then also sometimes I get questions too about, oh, but what about the campaigns? Like, do the campaigns need to know about the amount of numbers of calls that I'm making? Yes, but they got it. They know. We're the ones who do not know. Whether you're making as many texts or calls, they know, we do not. So you just go here to the fieldwork log, you put in your email and the date.
It takes just like 30 seconds to do it, you know.
Totally. It does not take long.
And you're done. Right.
Doesn't take long. And then there's this page, and there's one more page after when you hit next that just, yes, there you go, lets you know, or gives you an option to put in what type of information that you are logging. And then there's an other option if you need to write in something else. And I also just want to say, I know that some people, especially if you're using different types of phone banking platforms, it's hard to really log how many calls that you actually did and how many were good or not. So you'll see here, how many did you try to reach?
I'm just going to say 10.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't calls. It wasn't about calls.
Yes. And then how many people did you actually talk to? If you're phone banking with an auto dialer and it doesn't give you that information, we're just asking for your best guess. And on the first page, when you get to put in your time, that will help us give a good idea of what it is that you were doing. And then if you're able to estimate that, we want that number for text as well, even if it doesn't say it. You can put in any comments that you want us to know in that fieldwork log as well. But it's all very helpful. And Martha, I appreciate you pointing that out because we sometimes forget to tell people.
It's great.
Okay, I just want to say one last thing. One of the calls I made to Maine the other day, this woman picked up and I said, I'm calling for the Maine Democrats. And she said, well, bless your heart. And she meant it. She was serious. She wasn't being cynical or anything. And she said, well, what do you need to know today or something? I just, okay, that bless your heart just kept me going the rest of the day.
A man from Montana said that to me yesterday.
Yeah. So anyway, that's one of the things that keeps you going. Anyway, Anita, see you tomorrow night. And
yes, Team Maine.
Everything, everyone, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jane. I got a letter or an email from Bert, who many of you know, co-lead for Florida, and she called for Maine yesterday and said that she talked to 2 88-year-old voters who are going to vote absentee for the first time this year. And that was a very fulfilling conversation for her. And then she said she got a 76-year-old woman who responded to her question about voting for Biden with, I don't know, I'll have to ask my husband. And then Bert said, my heart sank. And then her husband picked up the extension and bellowed, hell yes, we're voting for Joe. And they both started laughing. Really sweet couple. Anyway, so you get all kinds of things on the phone.
I love that. Good husband for once. I definitely thought that was going a different way. I was like, oh no.
I know. She thought it was too. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? I know a lot of people had questions about Google Voice. You can sign up for Google Voice on your computer. You can sign up for Google Voice on your phone. Know that it's the same across those platforms. Once you have a Google Voice account, you can log into Google Voice on your laptop, on your desktop, on your phone, however it is you think about it. Whoa.
Is it?
Oh, sorry, can you unmute Janet, please?
Sorry,
hi, Janet. No problem. Yes, hi.
Is it the Google Voice that gave me the Montana phone number that
yes.
people see? So how do I called my friend the other day and she didn't answer the phone because it had a Montana phone number.
That must have meant that you called it using Google Voice. You just don't want to open Google Voice. And if you use your phone with your own phone pad, it will not show your Google Voice number. The only way it would show a Montana area code to your friend is if you dialed over Google Voice.
So how do I get Google Voice off my phone? How do I go back?
Well, it's an app. It's an app, just like any app that you would open. So just make sure the app is closed and dial on a regular dial and you'll be fine.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, that would be disorienting if your friend thought suddenly you were calling from Montana. Other questions or comments?
I have a question somewhat unrelated, but it's a tech question related to Zoom.
Yeah.
My chat box moves. Like when a new person puts something in, then it goes back up to the top. Is there something that I can do so that doesn't happen, that I can just keep it stationary so I only see the last ones?
Marty, mine does the same thing. I don't know.
You know, maybe it's because we have similar names, you know, M-A-R.
I don't know. That's why.
So Marty, are you looking to see the most recent or not?
The not the most recent.
So
yeah.
After about the first 20 comments, then when number 21 puts something in, the chat box goes up to number 1. And so in order for for me to follow all 50 or 60 or 70 entries, I have to keep scrolling down.
A couple ideas. One is that often the Google chat box will, the Zoom chat box will, you can just stop scrolling, and then there's a dialog box that says 16 new messages, and it'll you can just click on that and it'll take you down. The other thing you can do is in the lower right-hand corner of the chat box, you can save the chat. There's 3 dots. You can save the chat to your computer, which means that you don't have to worry about keeping your eye on it for every single second, because you can save the chat as a text file. And then it'll save to your computer, and you can go back and take a look at it and find, oh, what was that URL that Maria mentioned, you know, in minute 35. So keep in mind that you can save the chat. The only time that that's not possible is if the host has disabled that function, but it's pretty rare that a host does that. So tonight, for instance, when the chat was open, you could have gone down to those 3 little dots. They look a lot like the 3 dots that are in the upper left, right-hand corner of your screen when you're on your Zoom dialog box, but it's in the actual chat box, and you can save the chat to your hard drive. So that might be helpful for you, Marty.
Yes, but boy, I'm sure not seeing it. I'm not seeing those 3 dots in the lower right-hand corner of the chat box, you said?
When you open up the chat box, does it give you an opportunity to, like, you were going to send a message? Like when you click on chat, does it have a drop-down menu where you can send to everyone, or you can send to?
Yes.
Look over there. Is there a little box that says file, and then next to it 3 little dots? There's a 2 that says that's blue that says everyone, and then there's a thing that says file, and then there's a thing that has 3 little dots in a box where you would type a message in.
No.
You know, mine did not show when you were asking about it, Marty, but after I hovered in that area, it did show.
Okay. Well,
yeah, but if you click in, Marty, if you click in like you were going to send print or type a message in the chat, does the 3 dots show up maybe? Or can you try just testing and sending a message by typing in the chat? Okay, so you were able to type that. When you were typing in that, did you see 3 little dots?
No.
As you were typing? Are you on an iPad?
File. Oh.
I'm on a Chromebook.
Chromebook. Maria, do you see the 3 dots?
I see the 3 dots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Janet. Yes, I see the 3 dots, and I can save into chat. And Marty, I do not know why we can't see yours. And Anita, is it true that if you share screen right now, we can't see like this little dialogue for us?
Let me try. I don't think you can see the chat. Oh, maybe you can if I share the desktop. Let me see. Can you see my chat box?
No.
Probably, yeah.
Never mind.
No, they don't let you see the chat box. Marty, when you click on the chat box, does it float in front of your screen, or does it create a side section?
It's on the right side.
It doesn't float?
I can see, yes, it kind of floats.
But it stays totally on the right-hand side? Or does it come underneath participants?
No. It stays totally on the right-hand side.
Okay, so what you want to do is close it out, like close out chat.
Okay.
And close out participants so that you just are seeing tiles of faces.
Yes.
Do you have that? Okay. Now, when you click on the chat, where does it come up?
On the right-hand side.
Okay, because mine floats. Maybe that's because I'm the host. I don't know. And underneath everyone, where it says to everyone, which you used when you typed your test, You don't see a little box that says file and a little box with 3 dots. Leah says she doesn't have the 3 dots either on Chromebook. Huh, what might be a Chromebook thing? Interesting.
Okay.
Well, okay, here's the other thing you might do, both Marty and Leah, is in your Zoom settings, you may have to indicate that you want to be able to save chats. It could be that it's something you control from your back end. So in your own Zoom account, under the macro settings for your Zoom, you can go into those settings and find chat box, and you may have to check a box that says, I would like to have the ability to save the chat, and see if that's in the settings of Zoom. That's my next thought, is that it's not Chromebook, but it's something on Zoom and your settings.
All right.
I'd like to contribute a quickie here.
Sure, Janet.
There were questions about phone banking being inefficient, taking a long time to get to talking to a person. Remember?
Uh-huh.
But I thought, comparing it to traveling to that state, how long would we spend on the plane, packing,
sure,
finding a place to stay, all of that? We're just calling people like this, so.
Yeah, I mean,
you have to walk to their house,
I know one of the action days, Elise called 100 people in like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I called 100 people yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really helpful for the campaigns, or for any of the initiatives that are required, that are doing, very concerted phone banking.
Yeah, I'll just add to, I just did like some quick research on what's going on with the Zoom and Chromebooks. But
thanks, Maria.
Links do not work in a Chromebook in the chat. So if you try to click on a link in the chat in a Chromebook, it's not going to happen. And I do not think you can save chats on a Chromebook.
So it is a Chromebook thing.
Yes, and as of 4 days ago, it looks like the developers are trying to update and like fix that, but I'm not sure. But Marty, this takes me back to, I know that you were having so much phone banking troubles. And if you are using that Chromebook when you're doing the phone banking, that could be just another hurdle, another thing if it's not quite all the same functionality. So that could make you feel really good and be like, oh, great, it wasn't me.
Right. Yeah.
But it also could make you be like, dang it.
Well, that's fine. Thank you very much. It's bedtime here in the Midwest, and so
yes,
it's on.
Marty, it's great to have you all on the call. Thank you all so very much. Thanks for being here. Maria, thank you so much. And we will see one another in Zoom rooms.
We will.
Yes. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.